Well, thank you very much, and a warm welcome to you all. And for
Yeah.
those who are watching online, we're Brett and Kate, and we have been part of the Canterbury Gardens for about a year and a half or
Two
two
and a half,
years,
two
two
and
and
a
a half
half
years,
years
sorry.
now.
And we love it there. And but we are also, as not only is this our home church, we're also part of a ministry called Focus on the Family Australia. And we get to do a number of different things. One of the things, we do a lot of radio work, but we also do a lot of public presentations on parenting, on marriage, run marriage retreats. And we love being married. We've been married for 30 years and we love being parents, and we've got 3 young men, and plus now we've got 2 daughter-in-laws and 1 grandson. And so our family is growing. And so we've got a few runs on the board, and we share a lot of our stories along the way, some of our wins, some of our losses, some of the things that
We've learnt along the way.
hopefully we'll be able to share some of the things that you don't repeat in your relationship with your children. And we've got a whole series of questions that people have submitted, and it's by no means exhaustive, but there are a number of questions that we hopefully will be able to address. And but it's from what we've heard already, we've got children who are very, very young, and we've got teens. And as you can imagine, trying to give a parenting presentation that covers all of the issues in a short period of time, but we plan to finish by at least midnight tonight, and hopefully you'll find that worthwhile. But we'll aim to finish this in within the hour, and there's going to be opportunities for you to ask questions. And but hopefully we'll address many of the things. Some of them overlap. And if for those who have actually attended a previous presentation that we gave at Canterbury Gardens in a Saturday morning, I think last year, there may be some things that overlap, but hopefully we'll be able to address many of the things. We've got questions like, how do you control temper tantrums? Anyone else want to know how to control temper tantrums? Yeah. There'll be an altar call later on for those people and helping like that. Then we've also got how to talk to your pre-teens about sexuality and some of the big issues. We've got people asking about some of the teen issues and talking about social media and technology and screens. How many got challenges with the screens? Anyone got challenges with the screens? Yes. And they're all the parents as well, putting up their hands and having challenges with screens. How to have good values and how to follow the rules and boundaries and discipline, and that's just
and faith,
and how to maintain faith, emotional intelligence, and
there was a lot of questions.
how to deal with teenage girls, and how to deal with teenage boys. And so hopefully, as I said, we'll be able to finish a lot of those things by midnight tonight, but we are going to try and do it within the hour. All right. But they'll be more than happy for you to ask any other questions. You'll be able to submit those through. We'll get Shabu to interrupt if we need to. If someone wants to have a particular question or a comment, feel free to do this. We will make this as interactive as possible.
Yeah, just go like this if you want to ask a question.
Or you can do it electronically and put your hand up. And for those who are very familiar with Zoom, or those who are Zoomed out. Anyone else Zoomed out? Yes, a few. Not everyone. Yes. So I will happily start off with the importance of parenting. It is an incredible privilege, and you are a steward of your children, and you have to do the very best you can. And some reason why God felt that you were the best parent possible for your kids. And maybe sometimes you feel out of your depth. I know that we've felt out of our depth numerous times, but with God's help, he's enabled us to, navigate. And now we've got young adults and all those hard
and the 3 of them are alive.
Yes.
So, that's something.
Just. And for those who are new to faith, or even just open to faith, we're going to use some Bible scriptures that will help us to explain a little things of why we do the things we do from a biblical worldview. But even if you don't have a faith, these things that we're going to share with you will also be of great benefit to you. All right. So one of the things we have to, right off the bat, and talking about discipline, is not what you do to a child, but rather you do it for a child. And there's a big difference there. You don't do it just for the sake of it. You're doing it to help shape their character, their values, their belief systems, and you're setting them up for success later on. So the things that you do in the early formative years will help you later on. You got something else to add there?
No, that is the first building block. You've got to know why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. The why is so important.
Yeah, you have to understand the why. You don't set up discipline just so you're controlling your children. The discipline is for a reason, and God tells us that we need to discipline our children just like he disciplines us.
Yeah.
And Hebrews 12:11 says, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful.
And I remember when I was a kid, I had many a painful moment.
Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. So, the benefits in the future far outweigh, I suppose, what we would say, the inconvenience of it and the hard work as parents, because it is hard work. It's so consistent. It doesn't stop, especially if you've got several children. It is a continual day in, day out disciplining moment.
And we don't say that to depress you. We're just saying that you reap a harvest if you continue to be persistent with all of those things, but it takes a lot of hard work, but the dividends are huge. And I know many people say, they ask us, because we've got grown-up children now, that what's the easiest, Brett and Kate? What's the thing that was the most simplest and the best, the age that was the easiest? And we would say, bring back the nappy years any day of the week.
Nappy years and teen years.
Even the teen years were
we thought
easy
the 20s. The 20s are the hardest.
Yeah.
Go figure. Once they got into their 20s, and I think that's when you've got adults all living in the same house, it's the new navigation of having those adults all there together. But the younger years, if you can put your plan, your family plan in place, don't get me wrong, it's some things don't go to plan.
No.
But to have a general plan that you're going to work off together, or even on your own, having a great plan is going to set you up. It reduces the stress in your house because you've already ahead of time said, if this happens, this is what we're going to do. If this happens, this is what I'm going to do, or we're going to do. So rather than you getting to a situation and you react, you've already got a plan in place, and you go, okay, well, they just hit their sister or their brother. Well, this is what happens when that happens.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. And hopefully in the short time that we have, we'll be able to cover those things. There's a great verse in Proverbs, and Proverbs got a lot of wisdom there. And it says, discipline your children and they will give you peace. And anyone else want a peace in your households? We all want to have peace. And it goes on to say they will bring you the delights you desire. And we all desire to have peace and be delighted with our children. But how many don't always have delightful children? They challenge you. They press your buttons. They know how to press each other's buttons as siblings. If you've got more than two, they know exactly how to annoy and get a reaction. And they also know how to press your buttons as well. And so we'll give you some tips on how not to get a reaction from them.
I think one of the things we want to say up front is you can get into a situation where you have parent guilt. And that comes, if our child walks off the path of not following the Lord, or their behaviors are poor, or whatever. And we go, well, what have we done wrong as parents? What have we done? You've got to remember that our children have free wills. So you can do everything right and your child still make a choice to go and do something that you disagree with. But the chances of them staying on course, if you're leading well and you've got a good plan in place, are far higher than if you wing it. We're just going to say that. Winging it can be very tumultuous for a child. And we're going to talk more about that and how boundaries and consequences are so important for a child's feelings of safety.
So allowing your children from a very early age to know what the boundaries are and what the consequences at an early age will help you now and in the future. So if your kids are very clear of what mum and dad expect, and they know what the consequences are of poor choices, and you follow through, and they will feel much more secure. Kids do better when they know what the boundaries are. It's like playing sport. If you know what the boundary line is, goes well with you. If we have rules of how to drive a car, it goes well with us. If people decide to do things that are not following the rules, then there's chaos. But if you want peace in your household, you need to establish what the boundaries are. And we're going to give you maybe some suggestions of non-negotiables in your household. But if you clearly define what the consequences are of poor choices, and you need to follow through, regardless of it being convenient, and obviously kids will do those things because they know if they can get away with things, they'll try, especially if it's in a shopping center, or especially if you go to church or in a play group or doing something in front of other people, they think, oh, mum and dad I'll get away with it. Or especially if it's with grandma and grandpa but you have to follow through. If you know what the boundaries are, regardless of it being convenient or how you see yourselves.
Even if you're tired, I mean, how many know that if you're a parent, you're tired, regardless of whether you're working or not? Add working outside the home. Well, it's inside now, but working as an external job as well as parenting. It is just tired.
It's tiring.
You are tired all the time in especially those early years. It is a very tiring process. But if you can add a lot of fun in there as well, so it's not just all discipline, because that's how you build relationship with your children, and all discipline will work so much better out of relationship.
We often talk about parenting as sort of in thirds. It has to be fun, which Kate mentioned too, being firm and fair. And often sometimes it can become a little bit unfair, and kids will always say, it's not fair. You'll hear those words numerous times. But if you keep the balance of being fun, firm, but not strict per se. And maybe you've been brought up that way. That's how you experience parenting. And you might have said things like, I'll never be like my dad, or I'll never be like my mother. But you tend to default to the things that you're familiar with, unless you make an intentional decision on how that you're going to come across. And many people think that, the more strict I am, the more kids will follow my lead or follow my words. All the research would say that a child that has a healthy relationship with their parents and will follow through tend to be ones that their parents are not strict, but their parents are firm but fair. And keeping that balance is so very important. And the other thing we need to do is being very consistent. And that's the hardest thing about parenting, trying to be very consistent and following through, because your kids will try and test you. They'll try and find out where their boundaries are, but you have to be very consistent. And it's like with God. God doesn't move his boundaries, therefore we shouldn't move our boundaries.
Yeah. When we move our boundaries, it can actually create anxiety in our kids because they don't know what to expect. Because if you say one thing and do another thing, they go, oh, I can push that. Oh, what do they mean if I do that? Oh, are they going to do an outburst if I do that? Whereas if they know what the consequences are and we follow through, then they feel secure. But the minute you start flip-flopping, they feel unsafe and they don't know what to expect. And that actually creates an anxiety in a child. They think we're being kind if we give in to them, but we're not doing them any favors, because they actually need us to be firm and stick to our guns, because that actually makes them feel safe. And they don't know that, but it's extraordinary that every piece of research says that if you follow through what you say you're going to do, a child feels safe, even if they don't like it in the moment, because a lot of kids don't like being disciplined in the moment. Yes, Beck. Your mic's off.
Just a quick question. The boundaries.
Yep.
Surely they have to shift a bit as the kid gets older.
Very much so.
How do you navigate that?
As long as they mature and demonstrate that they have the maturity to move to the next level. But it's contingent on maturity, not necessarily on age.
So trust is one of those things that they earn. And if they can be trusted with a few things, it's a bit like, can you leave them home for a little while by themselves when they get to the age of 12 or 13? You don't leave them responsible for their siblings, but you can leave them stay home for a little while, because the boundary, you're trusting them, they're maturing, and they'll take greater responsibility. But if they break that trust, then you have to bring in the reins a little bit more. So when they're younger, probably a short rein. As they get older, the reins or the boundaries do move. But when we talk about some things that don't move, we're going to give you those non-negotiables in just a few moments.
Have you got an example, Bet?
Just thinking like the 9-year-old being allowed to play out the front of the house without parent supervision, or, you know, do I drop him off 2 blocks away from school and let him walk the rest of the way? You know, different things like how much independence to grant, you know, things like that.
Yeah, that's a really good, they're excellent examples. And I mean, I've heard different stories of parents dropping off their kids, but then they follow them,
to make sure
they do well. And then as they earn that, that you can say, oh, you did it, well done, you praise them, then they take that, a little bit of pride.
And you let them know that that's what you're doing. Yeah, you can walk ahead of me for this first week. You can walk ahead of me and I'll be behind with the other kids or whatever. But if you do that well, then, I'll give you a go the next week. I'll give you a day where you can go and, you meet him at the gate.
But an excellent thing that hopefully that if you've got multiple children, one of the keys that we did intuitively, but we've done a lot of reading on this topic, is don't treat your kids exactly the same at the same time. For example, it may be easier for your kids to all have their baths all at the one time.
If there's only a few years between them.
Then do some reading at the same time, and then they go to bed at the same time. That may be the easiest thing you could do, and it might seem very practical, but it's actually doing them a disservice because the oldest is being treated the same as the youngest. So therefore, as the younger one gets older and the older one's doing things, they're going to expect to be treated exactly the same. So even if there's a 15-minute different bedtime, or they have different privileges at different ages and different stages, making it obvious, and don't try and hide it and say, well, they're going to stay up a bit later than you. You'll hear the words, it's not fair. Where you say, when you turn 10 or when you turn 12, when you turn, you'll be able to have that privilege. But there needs to be some sort of demarcation. And we've seen it time and time again, especially in the teen years. If a child, the younger one, has been treated exactly the same and had the same privileges as their older sibling, they're going to expect to have the same
what they're doing
opportunities as the, like once the 18-year-old and the 14-year-old's doing exactly the same as the 18-year-old, they're going to say, it's not fair. Why can't I do it? And again, it's just those little things that can make all the difference.
Yeah, it's like they've missed a step. They should graduate from one maturity level to the next. So they're milestones. So if they're 14 and they're now doing stuff that the 18-year-old was doing, they've missed the enjoyment of doing what you should be doing at, say, 14. And they get discontented. And just an example of this, one of our sons was quite bright, and he was also having bullying issues. And so the school said, we'll skip him a grade. And I said, well, that's really great and a beautiful year level that he was going into. And I said, but looking ahead, when he's in year 12, they'll be 18, and he was already a year younger. So I said, they'll be 18 and he'll be 16. I said, I would be setting my child up for rebellion because he will be wanting to do what the 18-year-olds are doing, and he'll be 16. So he'll be riding a bike while his mates were driving a car. And I said, I'm not prepared to do that to him because that would put him in a very difficult position because he wouldn't know how he was supposed to mature. And so we chose not to do that for his own sake. And we chose a different option, which allowed him to excel academically.
Again, it's not easy. You might feel like you
do have to look ahead.
It's not just the here and now. Definitely, it feels very logical, but we're thinking about bigger picture.
Yeah.
And Kay was talking about, being consistent and allowing your children not to become anxious. And one of the important things is being mum and dad on the same page, not having a good cop, bad cop scenario. And very simply, by having that, your kids are going to try and pick off they talk about divide and conquer. If they can get the division between mum and dad, then they're going to play off and ask the question. So being consistent. Now, if you're doing it solo, my hat goes off to you. Parenting's tough enough when it's mum and dad doing it, and trying to get on the same page is only going to happen through conversation. But if you're doing it by yourself, you need other people to be a male role model or a female role model. But when you're doing the parenting role, there is one advantage of that: you don't have to play the good cop, bad cop scenario.
You've got a plan.
But if you have the scenario where you're having to have a child going to another parent, the dad or the mum at different houses and having a different value systems, one of the hints that I'd always talk about, or a tip, there's your kid is the priority. And even though dad or mum have a different value systems, is you can always come back with the same thing, is that's okay at what you do there, but in our house, this is what we do.
Yeah.
And be very consistent. Again, this is the value system. It can be a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit disconcerting, or a bit confusing for children, but eventually I get into the rhythm that this is what I can do at mum's house and this is what I can do at dad's house. But if mum and dad are together, make sure you're doing the same thing.
And look, that can be difficult if you don't agree. So if somebody came from quite a strict home and they go, oh no, we don't want to be doing that. And then somebody came from a permissive home and they go, we really need to get stricter. And so then you've got your locking heads. And that's where you really need to sit down and go, what is it we want for our child? What is it we want them to look like in the future? Now, I'm not talking, do I want them to be a doctor or do I want them to be an athlete? I'm talking about what kind of character do we want our child to have? And so what do we want them to look like? Do we want them to be serving other people? What attitudes do we want them to have? All of those things. So to do that, we need to be on the same page. We need to do it lovingly. We need to do it firmly. And we need to have fun. Because our child will only build relationship with us if we have fun intermingled with everything else.
Parenting is not out of fear and trepidation.
No, that's right.
It's always done out of relationship. And the greater you build that relationship, not trying to be their friend, be their parent first, not their friend, but you can build that healthy relationship. And that's only going to come through conversation and having great dialogue, no monologues, and allowing your kids to express their feelings, which we'll talk about a little bit later on.
And they've got to know that you play to a certain point, but if they step over the line, you quickly pull them up and go, you just crossed the line there. So let's draw that back in. So you let them know, so we might start out with a pillow fight, with our boys when they were younger. But if they went for the head, it was like, okay, stop.
Time out.
Yep, that's not okay. So if we want to play, then this is how it works. Okay,
and
so
wrestling and pillow fights are good chances for your child to work out what's good, fun, and
what's stepping over the line.
And if you can do that control, or you'd say, oh, mummy got hurt or daddy got hurt, then they'll learn how to control their body. So there's more to play fights than meets the eye. There's a lot of benefits for doing that.
It was interesting because one of our sons was in school and he got hit by a boy. And we got called into the principal's office, and because the boy said that our son hit him in the head like 7 times. So we went in and I said, look, absolutely, if my son hit anybody in the head, well, throw the book at him. That's just the way it is. But in our household, if you ever hit anybody in the head, well, that was crunch time. That was a no-go zone. And I said, and he had 2 brothers and he's the youngest of the brothers. So I said, I could almost say 99% that he did not do this because he knows that is a no-go. Anyway, as it turned out, the boy was lying. There were all these witnesses that he'd lied. And, when I said, because I turned to our son and I said, did you do this? And he goes, Mum, I'd never go for the head. That was always with the brothers, it was a no-go zone. And I go, exactly. So we've got to teach them what's okay and what's not okay. And they learn that from a very young age. If we role model it.
And how we do the relationship and build into that role modeling and things like that is, what are they observing from you? And if you could write this down and keep it inside your brain and do it intuitively, one of the things that I think it would be the best thing you can give to you is learn to respond, not react. you might be freaking out and being angry and annoyed on the inside, but on the outside, you're cool, calm, and collected. It's a bit like
You're
the
like
duck.
I was about to say the duck.
You know, is if you've got a short fuse, you know, it's all very well for you to, you know, fly off the handle and you say, stop yelling. You know, if you're yelling, it's not really giving the model that you want from your kids. Or, you know, if you then give them, you know, you hit them and then you say, stop hitting your brother, it's giving a mixed message. So learning to respond means that you can have ongoing conversations with your children, and not in a frustration or not in anger, but in a calm manner. And that's actually good for them to realize that mum and dad, even though they might, and you might say, I am really annoyed or I'm really angry at the moment, but you're teaching them how to control their anger in a way that you're preferring for them to follow through.
And the thing is, it's okay to be angry, and it's okay for them to be angry. It's how to manage that. Yeah. And so you need to model
little kids, how big feelings.
Yeah, that's right. So they're out there, you know. Yeah. And so as parents, let's face it, we send them to their room so we don't do anything. It's for their own safety.
And if you want to do a little tip, you know, if you can say, go to your room and I'm going to come and talk to you in 15 minutes, but you come back and do it in 16 minutes. That extra 1 minute will make them sweat a little bit further. Just
when they're little, let's face it, don't wait 15 minutes. You can't wait any minutes.
Yeah.
Because they've forgotten what they've done in about 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And they go, what? Why am I getting into trouble? Yeah. They have no idea. So for really little ones, you've got to deal with it on the spot. For the little bit older, send them to their rooms. You calm down, pray about it. Let's face it, you need some prayer. Because you want to deal with it in a loving way. If you go in there all angry, all they see is the anger. You want them to think about what they've done, talk about what they've done, and be contrite about their repentance and their sorry.
Yeah.
And so you need to have that time for them to really think about it.
Yeah.
I know when our kids mucked up at the shopping centre, I would say to them, if you throw a tantrum at the shopping centre, I will take you home and you will be disciplined. I mean, I only had to do it a few times, once for each of my boys, when in the middle of food shopping. Very inconvenient.
Yeah.
But I had said to them, if this happens, this is what's going to happen. So the number of times, the 3 times, I'm not joking, that I took my trolley up to the front and I said to the lady, I am so sorry, but I've got to take my child home and discipline. And the checkout person would go, oh, you go, girl. They were so thrilled that they were actually going to discipline your children.
Because shopping centres are a great training ground.
It is a great training ground.
Tantrums.
Yep. And so I would talk to them on the way home. We're only 7 minutes from the shopping centre, but I would have to talk to them about what they'd done because I knew they'd forget. And so I would say, now, when we get home, you're going to go into your bedroom because you threw a tantrum. And, you know, we'd get home and I go, now, remember, you're going to head into your, because otherwise they forget. And you can't obviously discipline them at the shopping centre. So taking them home and and they'd say, well, I don't want to be disciplined. But once again, here's what you say. Well, you actually asked me to discipline you because you knew if you threw a tantrum, we would come home and you would be disciplined.
That's again, so being consistent and persistent and following through the consequences of their choices.
You put it back on them because you're teaching them to own their behavior.
Yeah.
And you said, well, you chose this. You said to me, Mum, I need help to not throw tantrums. And so you decided on this. And they go, well, I wish I hadn't have chosen that. And I go, I know, me too, because I have to follow through. Because God's told me that I have to discipline you if you misbehave.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be disobedient to God.
Yeah.
And so we put it back on them. So it teaches them from a very young age to own their behavior. That's even from like 2.5.
Yeah.
I would say to them, you chose this. You knew what would happen if you lied or if you hit your brother or if whatever it is that are non-negotiables in your home for consequences. We would put it back on them. Because they had to learn that, you know, when you said, who did this, you want them to be able to say, oh, look, I did it. Because let's face it, consequences are less if you are truthful and honest.
Yeah.
And we would say, well done for being honest. There are consequences for what you did, but they are a whole lot less than if you had have lied straight to my face.
Yeah. And every child's different. Have you noticed if you've got 2 or 3 children, you have to parent them uniquely. They're all different.
Yeah.
I remember our first child, you don't have to go like this. That's all you have to
You
do.
didn't even have to say anything. You'd just go,
He'd know. And then, but then number 2 and number 3 came along, and then
well,
a little bit different.
Yeah, a lot
We
different.
all thought it was just sort of parenting, easy. And then we had 2 and 3. So we're all on different journeys, but the same rules do apply though. And then you have to find out what are the values, what are the beliefs, what are the boundaries, what are the consequences in your household, but you have to still parent them uniquely.
And but just a different application, same rules, different application.
Yeah.
Because they need to see that the same rules apply. So it's fair. But if a child automatically, if you catch a child doing something and they automatically say, oh, mummy, I'm so sorry. It's very different than a child who goes, I didn't do it.
Anyone heard that one?
You know, and straight out, immediately they try and defend. And so you're going to handle the child who says, oh, mummy, I'm so sorry, very differently from the child who says, well, I didn't do it, even though you saw them do it. So it's them working with that. But
you also got the other one that actually plays off and they go, oh, I did it, but I didn't really mean it. But they keep on saying that same thing time and time again. It's not really that they're learning from that. But again, commend them for trying and their effort. But setting the expectations and making sure that mum and dad are on the same page is very clear and very important. But it's also starting early, from as early
from the word go.
As I mean, kids will learn that the world isn't revolving around them if you don't make them the center of attention. But if you get them to do, you drop everything as soon as they whimper or they do something or they want something, then they're going to get this idea, oh man, I've got power. I've got mum and dad just do it exactly what I want to do. And if yours got that established in the early formative years, they'll quickly learn that mum and dad are not at their beck and call. And
it starts as simple as if you're having a conversation with another adult or even a child, and your child comes and goes, mum, 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 and is interrupting. And if we automatically go to our child, what we're saying is, you're more important than the person who's in front of me. And so what we taught our children to do is respect that person in front of us, and to come up and just put their hand on us. And I would acknowledge and go, you know, pat their hand to say, I know you're here. And when I'm finished this conversation, and I would make it just a paragraph, and then I'd say, excuse me, to the person who I was speaking to. But enough for them to know that the person in front of me that I am talking to, I respect. And they need to respect that person, and they are of value.
Things that can make all the difference.
And so they're not to interrupt me. They are not the center of attention. The person I'm talking to is the center of attention.
Yeah.
And so just to have that learning, just a small thing, that they are to respect that I'm speaking and that person is important. And so just teaching that from a very young age so that they learn that little thing, that you're not going to drop everything the minute they speak.
Yeah.
Because the world doesn't revolve around them.
No.
And your family doesn't revolve around them. You as a husband and wife, you were family first, and you two will be there together at the end.
Yeah.
So if you make the children the center and then they leave, then you don't know who each other are.
Yeah.
And so they're added to the family. They're not the center. God should be the center of your family.
Yeah.
And then the husband and wife, and then your children. And so they need to learn that everybody plays a role. They're not the center.
Yeah. And I mentioned a bit earlier about what we believe is the non-negotiables and what we in our household, because you've got to pick your battles. Because if you could imagine, if you're at work and your boss kept on telling you everything you did wrong, it'll be demoralizing. It would be demotivating, and you wouldn't want to do anything, and you wouldn't want to go to work because your boss is going to always pick fault. And if you're a parent who always picks a fault your kids, because your kids are not perfect, they're going to make mistakes. We want to catch them doing the right things. More than what they do the wrong things. But we have found that there are some things that we had the non-negotiables, the battles that we were worth fighting for. And they were obedience, honesty, and respect. Obedience, honesty, and respect. And they were very consistent. It wasn't so much keeping their room clean or making sure all their toys were all in a perfect alignment, or their books, or
I mean, we taught them, don't get us wrong, we taught them how to clean up. If they made a mess, we taught them to clean up. But they weren't the things that we would discipline for unless they were directly defiant.
Yeah, or disrespectful.
Yes.
Or disobedient.
Yeah.
Or being dishonest.
Yeah. So taking very much in our home, if the boys took a disrespectful tone with me, Brett would pull them up very, very quickly, because he's role modeling how men should treat women and treat them with respect. So we're role modeling very early on about what it should look like in the future. And so even taking a tone is not okay. Girls with their dads and et cetera, girls with their mums, we've got to teach them how to speak to each other with respect. Siblings respecting siblings.
So nip things in the bud early rather than letting them get out of hand. And that will help you, especially if you've got sibling rivalry, if you address it there and then rather than waiting till it gets to fisticuffs or screaming or yelling. So addressing it early.
And no negative talk in terms of no shut up, no I hate you, and no you're stupid. There should be none of that in the home, because that is personally damaging. And if somebody says that to you, it wounds your heart.
And especially when it comes from someone you love.
That's right. It creates a really big wound. So we had none of that in our home. And if they spoke in that kind of way, then they had to serve their sibling, because the discipline would be the opposite of what they just did. So they'd do something respectful and honoring to counteract the disrespect they'd just shown. And so it is really important that they learn how to speak in a loving way to each other. And don't get me wrong, I mean, they had push and shove, and, you know, they go, I don't like you. And I'm like, you're annoyed with them right now. Learn the correct language. It's not that you don't like them or love them. It's you're annoyed because they touched your toys. So you say that. Let's use that language. It really annoys me when you touch my things without asking.
Give them a vocabulary.
Give them a narrative of how to say it in a way that is not aggressive and not demeaning to their sibling, because you want them to have a close-knit relationship in the future. And if they do damage where it destroys their, you know, their heart and their spirit by putting them down all the time, it's really wounding and can create a real wedge between them, and you don't want that.
Another thing that we've found that is of great benefit, and you'll be surprised how much kids will be more strict on themselves if you've given some options of what do you think are the natural consequences if they break the rules, and getting them some ownership, like how much technology should you have, and if you break the technology curfew or boundary, what do you think should be the consequence? So we actually think by offering some choices and getting them involved in the decisions gives them a greater ownership and buy-in. And that depends not in the early years, but later on, especially going into the pre-teens and teen years, they tend to be a little bit more strict than you would be. So I would encourage you to have family conversations, getting everyone involved and create that as the norm, that, you know, we got to work out how we're going to run this family, and we want your involvement. And we need you to be involved in this. And you'll be surprised how kids value having a say, and not just waiting for mum and dad to tell them what to do and what not to do, but they will take a greater ownership. And that's that maturity, as you were asking before, how to treat them differently. As they mature, as they take on greater responsibility, then you allow them the privilege of growing up. And that's what you want. You're actually setting them up for success, not just trying to survive the early years. You want them to thrive. So you're preparing them for the realities of this world, which means you have to allow them to face the consequences when they make poor choices, or just simply the natural consequences if they forget their lunch or forget their runners or they forget their homework or their things. Like, you don't try and protect them and bubble wrap them and keep them in cotton wool. They need to face the consequences of getting hungry or missing out on PE or
getting a detention
if they miss out on their notes. This is something that many parents, you know, say, I don't want my little child to get hungry. I don't want my little child to miss out on things. You might miss out on once, you know, and trying to prevent that from happening, but they'll learn that if they forget their lunch,
they're going to be hungry.
I missed out. Or if they, you know, it might be simply, and I'm bad like this. You know, I'll still say to my young adults, "Oh, it's cold outside. You better grab your jacket." You know, now I'm learning that, you know, if they go outside and without their jacket, they'll be cold. A child, next time you might say, "You grab your jacket," they'll go, "Oh, I remember last time I was freezing."
Yeah.
Again, allowing them the consequences of their choices.
Well, it teaches them to be responsible for the future. That's what you're trying to teach them, to be responsible. And so if they're not responsible, they've got consequences. It's a, you know, action reaction.
Yeah.
And they learn very quickly that, but if we keep rescuing them, like helicoptering in or
Drone
droning
parenting
in,
is
now
the new word.
droning in, and rescuing them from everything that's going to hurt them or upset them, or, you know, especially if your child is quick to react, you go, "Oh, I'll do that because I don't want them to throw a tantrum."
Yeah.
Well, no, it's going to be part of what happens, and it's part
another
of
part of that
process.
is another thing, another style of parenting is called lawnmower parenting, which means you mow everything, making everything smooth for them. No, they need to face the bumps and the lumps that come along with with growing up. And if you try and make everything smooth, you know, when they become adult, they're going to say,
they're soft.
Where's my safety net? Where's mum and dad? They protected me from all those things.
And we need to teach them resilience.
Yeah.
It is building resilience, that there are hard knocks. If you make choices that aren't great, there are consequences that go with it. And so life can be tough, and we have to allow them to feel that, because they have to keep building in themselves character and strength of character.
Yeah.
So as they get older, they can navigate those adult years well.
Yeah. And one of the things that many parents ask us at parenting seminars, and obviously we're not going to be able to cover everything, but they talk about what are some natural disciplines, and people say, "Can you smack them?" And again, we at Focus on the Family Australia, we can't endorse that, because in our laws today, it can be considered, and every state's different, and every state legislation has different rules and regulations, and you can be charged if your kid knows that they can actually manipulate and say, "Oh, I'll tell my teacher that my mum or dad beat me," then you might have some conversations to have with the Department of Human Services or the police.
Yes, because the word beat is, you know, you might give them a smack on the hand and they go, "Oh, my parents beat me." So, you know, we've got to be very careful.
So we don't necessarily endorse it, but we did with our children growing up.
That was a lot of years
ago. They
survived.
survived.
Yeah.
But I would, there's
never, ever though, we need to clarify with smacking. Because
if you use it.
because this is really important. Smacking should never, ever be done in anger. It's something that is used as a tool and done in love. You know, when our children were little, we would sit with our children and talk about it. They would get a smack. They would say sorry. They would apologize to us. They would apologize to God. We would pray together. And then they'd say, "Can we go play?"
And you move on.
And would you go, "Absolutely, let's go." You know, so it's not done in an angry or aggressive way.
It's done out of love and through relationship.
Yes. And so there's lots of different ways of doing that. But, you know, it's in this day and age, that's not kind of the way it's done. There's timeouts. There's
technology is another one that you know.
Take away something that really means something to them.
Trust, especially for teenagers, earning that trust, and if that trust has been taken away, I mentioned those. But every child's unique, and what will hurt a child more, not physically hurt, but what will be press their buttons and get them more reaction. And every child is different. Because, for example, if you send your child to a room and they like being by themselves, and you say, "Go to your room," they're going to say, "Great, no worries, I can do that.
My books are in there."
Yeah. If you say to a child that loves being around people and you say, "Well, you can't go out with your friends because you've broken our trust or you've done something that's disobedient," that hurts them more. So every child's different, and you have to uniquely discipline them according to your child.
And make it equal to what they did.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if they smack their brother and they're 5, or, you know, or no, let's say they're older. You're not going to ground them for a month. You know, you've got to be equal with what's actually happened. Don't over punish a child for something that's quite small and be really aggressive. I'd move on.
Now, there's lots of things we can talk about, because a number of people are asking us about the teen years and the things they're going to be facing, and the popular culture, and going to be pushing the boundaries and risk taking, and their adolescence. They're changing their bodies, their physiological changes, relational, psychological, and emotional changes. There's lots of different things there. But I would say to you, especially when it comes to technology, media, messages, drugs and alcohol, but the very big one is about sex and sexuality and relationships. It is never too early to talk to your kids at an age appropriate level about the big issues, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when your kids will be exposed to things. And you can't wait till later on. It's better to have these ongoing little conversations along the way, talking about their body, talking about how they should protect it, what they should allow through their eyes and through their ears, and helping them to create their own filters, if you like, rather than just relying on mum and dad's external filters, like all the technology that is around. You want them to be more discerning themselves. So we would encourage you to talk about those things. And if you'd like some resources, in fact, on our website at families.org.au, we have a number of resources, including an ebook download. It's by no means exhaustive, but there's a number of different, very small, bite-sized chapters on how to talk to your kids about puberty, how to talk to your kids about pornography, how to talk to your kids about sexting, how to talk to your kids about LGBTQAI, how to talk to your kids about the mood changes they're going to go through, what is sex, how do babies get made. You know, there's a whole lot of things, and we have to get out of our comfort zone and talk about it as early as possible. But it's an ongoing conversation, not the one-off conversation where you think, oh, phew, I've done it. You know, I remember hearing a dad, when a 6-year-old came up to his dad and said, "Daddy, where did I come from?" And dad said, "Oh man, I didn't think I'd have to go into all the details," and proceeded to tell the whole story. And the kid's going, oh, no. And he says, "Well, why did you ask?" And he said, "Well, Tom says he comes from Scoresby, and Sam says he comes from Furniture Gully. I just want to know where I come from." So it's good to clarify the questions before you give all the answers. So asking questions or answering questions with age appropriate, and to the level of their understanding and their level of their maturity.
And also on our website, Dr. Patricia Wurakoon, we've done some interviews with her, and she's got fantastic books from little people up to young adults on all things sex, with lots of questions, the biblical, all the biblical teachings around it. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. And if you've got any doubt, we can send you,
enough.
We can send you some resources if you'd like some more on those things. But on our website, go to families.org.au and find out that. Some people are asking about the uniqueness about teen girls and teen boys. We'll try and do this as quickly as possible. I know that some people have got, early years, 4 and 5-year-olds, but the time will go very quickly, and before you know it, they will become teens. So it's forming that healthy relationship now will help you navigate the teen years.
And in fact, if you start now, you're going to get this right. So well, here's girls and teens, and this is a lot to do with dad, by the way, dads. But if there isn't a dad on the scene, mums, get all over it. Your daughter needs to know that you think she's beautiful. Not the external. You can still say she looks beautiful, but it's about her inestimable worth. It's inestimable. It's just, she's beautiful. This builds her self-esteem. Behaviors towards her speak louder than any words. So you have to treat her that she is precious to you. If the words don't match up with the behavior, all it is a bunch of noise to her. And she smells a hypocrite a mile off. Yeah. And when she's in her teen years, boy, is she going to tell you. Vocab is big for a teen girl. But her self-esteem is the cornerstone of her emotional health. So she needs to know how much you love her. Yeah. Now, when I was in grade 6, my dad wrote me a letter. And it said, "Katie, it doesn't matter to me what results you get," because it was near report writing time, "but I just want you to know how precious you are in my sight. Regardless of any achievements you have,
So good.
You as a person given to me by God is just beyond anything I could have imagined. Can you picture a little girl hearing that from a parent saying how much they love you regardless what you do? The other thing is, set an example. This is for dads, by role modeling how a man shows love towards his wife.
Yeah.
Because what this does is it teaches your daughter what to look for, what behavior is acceptable when she's looking at other guys. And she needs to know what it looks like to be treated well.
Like a princess.
Like a princess. So she is watching daddy treat mummy with respect.
How you treat the queen.
Yeah. So we need to know that they are being watched. You need to know that you're being watched, because that will set her up to whether she's prepared to accept anything less in the future. Because she goes, you know what? Dad opens the door for mum. Dad does this for mum. Dad treats her with respect. Dad says please and thank you. Dad, whatever. And so if another guy comes along and he just walks straight through the door, and she goes, you know what? That doesn't interest me. And so we need to be setting the example that we want our daughters to fall for in the future.
Yeah.
Allow your daughter to explore her emotions, even the negative ones.
Yeah. And they are going to go through all the different hormonal changes, and they might change overnight from Dr. Jekyll to Mr. Hyde or Miss Hyde.
Yes. And when, periods start, that's another whole scenario. And so you need to learn to manage those. It's okay. They build strength in our child. They might get angry. We teach them how to harness that, because there's going to be times when they have to stand up for themselves, and we want them to know how to do that.
Yeah.
We don't want to squash it. We want them to know how to handle it, how to do it really well, that anger is okay in certain circumstances, and teach them when it's okay and when it's not okay. But we need to allow them to explore all of their emotions and what that looks like, and teach them how to manage them well. Spending time with your daughter and getting to know her, and show that you respect her opinions, her thoughts, and she is loved regardless of whether she has differing opinions to you.
Yeah.
Because they are going to, especially in this world right now. They are going to have differing opinions, but ask questions. Okay, why is it you believe that? What is it that's led you to there? Have you considered this? Instead of reacting and going, I can't believe you think that way, that is so ignorant, or something like that, where you just shut her down. You need to respond and ask questions, and be curious about why she thinks that way, what has led to her thinking that way.
Yeah.
And then teach them how to be independent. Don't be overprotective. Let them know they are capable and they have what it takes, that you are their cheer squad.
Yeah.
I remember when I was 19 and I was going to America. I was going to Canada first and then America. We had family friends in Canada, and then I was going to stay with friends in America. And so the whole reason for me going was to learn independence from my parents, because my dad was pretty protective. Anyway, so I had to fly to Sydney, change airports, and get on another plane. So this is how the conversation went down. My dad says to my mum, look, I'm going to fly up with Katie and to Sydney, and then I'm going to get her on, transfer her to that other airport and get her on the aeroplane. And my mum said, no. The whole point of her going is her to learn independence. Yeah. So she needs to ask, if she's got an issue, how do I get there? She's not to have you there protecting her every step of the way. My helicopter dad wanted to protect me from every single thing. I mean, and the funniest things happened. I lost my passport. I lost my traveler's checks. I lost, it was
nightmare.
But you know what? God was there. I'm sitting on the plane going, I have no idea what I do when I get to the next airport. What do I do, God? I don't know what to do. And 2 seconds later, there's all these exchange students who are going home to Canada. He said, are you on your own? Do you want to travel with us all the way to you know, and I'm like, oh, thank you. Oh, and by the way, I've lost my password. You know, so there are funny things that happen, but we have to allow our kids to learn how to do it.
Yeah, don't be protective.
Don't be too protective. And we can do it. We have to trust that our children can do it, but we have to allow them to do it bit by bit.
And I think just briefly, and we'll leave it, we'll
just
land
the
on
boys.
this,
We did
the boys
boys
really quickly, is your young men just need your respect. Regardless of everything they do, they are craving respect
and approval.
And they need to, again, similar to what the girls need, they need to know that you're the number one cheer squad. And you don't just say, I love you, but I really like you as a person.
Yeah.
I really dig you. I think you're a champion. I think really highly of you. You're actually speaking positivity into their world.
Yeah. I really love this about you. You can say, I really love that you can have a good laugh, you know, when something happens. I love your belly laugh, or I love the way you were so thoughtful when you know, picked up that thing off the floor when somebody else left it in the church, you know, or you saw that somebody forgot something and you went up and gave it to them. That was really lovely.
Yeah.
It was so thoughtful. Acknowledge them as they're developing. That boys really need it. They will almost do anything to have a parent's approval.
Very much so.
And so we have to not make them beg for it. We have to give it to them willingly, and that they
will thrive. You'll see. You praise a kid and you just say, and even if they may not even understand what a respect is, even if you just say the word, I respect you, all the evidence and the research says even 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds seem to understand respect seems like a very positive thing.
Yeah.
And if you feed that in, they will want to do more things that are respectful. So you're actually breeding or helping them prefer the best way of behavior and activities and the choices if you feed into that positivity. They love laughter. They love having games. They love even the toilet humor, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah, boy humor.
And they need to make sure that you do the wrestling. They like the physical wrestlers. Girls do it as well, but particularly boys.
Yeah.
Yes, Beck?
How do you balance even more as they get older? I know I've got a little one. But how do you balance that whole respect, but not an unconditional love and unconditional respect versus not enabling?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a very complicated issue and a fine line. With little ones, you can say to them that the behavior is not right. You have to focus on the behavior, not them as a person. Saying to somebody, you're a naughty little boy, that's them personally, rather than saying that behavior is not acceptable. You're a great kid. You're a great kid, but the behavior is not okay. So let's get back on track.
Yeah.
And so you're praising that you love them. You're not praising their bad behavior. You're saying that's not okay, but I love you.
Yeah. It's like teaching them how to say please and thank you. You practice those things. So you practice and say, you know, we practice how to be polite. The way you spoke to mummy or the way that you spoke to daddy was not polite. What would you normally say? What
should you be saying when you ask for something, let's say? You know, mummy, could I please have? Not, I want that.
Yeah.
And so you're teaching them, and you've got to be very careful to separate bad behavior from them as a person, because they're not a bad person. Their behavior is bad. Let's face it, even as adults, we do things that aren't great.
Yeah.
But we separate their anger or their whatever's going on from the person that they are, because you know who they are.
Yeah.
And it's just the fact that they've made some silly choices.
Yeah. And particularly boys, they just love to explore and do crazy things. Don't curb their curiosity. Don't curb their enthusiasm.
Because that's their learning style.
They just need to be able to, make sure that they know what the boundaries are. So you want to, encourage it if you like. Being inquisitive and being curious is part of how God made them. So don't, stop it, but just need to control it in a way that is healthy for them and for those around them.
One thing you should never say to a boy is, do it because I say so. that doesn't make any sense to a boy. He needs to know why. What's the purpose of it? Why do I have to do it this way? So you need to be saying, okay, the reason we're doing, when they're tiny, don't get me wrong, you don't do that or the whole explanation. But as they're older, they need to know the reason why. There's got to be a purpose in it. The reason why we're doing this is for this reason. And they go, oh, you know, we didn't have any handheld technology or anything in our home when our boys were in their teens. And we would discuss it and they'd say, well, why is that? And I go, well, what kind of relationship do you have with your brothers? Oh, we're really close. What is it that you love doing the most? Oh, we love playing sport and being outside and laughing and talking. Okay, well, Sam, let's put it back in the technology stage. Do you talk to each other and laughing together when you're on technology? No. So does it achieve what you love doing? No. So then we'd have that discussion. And so then that was out the window again. Okay, that's why we don't have technology.
Yeah.
And so we have to talk to them about the why, because then they own it. But if we just go, you're just going to do that because we say so. It's not the way the boy works. And some girls are like that too. They need to know the why. So they can understand what's behind it.
Children need to have the why, not just because mum and dad said so, but the why. And we're unfortunately run out of time, but I'd just like to leave you with one verse. And it says from Psalm 127, without the help of the Lord, it is useless to build a home or to guard a city. It is useless to get up early and stay up late in order to earn a living. God takes care of his own even while they sleep. Children are a blessing and a gift from the Lord. And especially when your kids have been giving you such a hard time, I would encourage you to go into their bedroom while they're asleep and wake them up. No. Don't do that. Don't do that. No, just go in there and have a look while they're asleep.
Because they look angelic. Can you fall in love with them all over again?
They are a blessing, but you need God's help. And even if you, don't know what to say, we have done this numerous times. Is we have no idea how to deal with this child's behavior right now. God grant us wisdom, and God answered every time, either with somebody coming into our world or giving some suggestions, and we glean from them. So we would encourage you, just treat your children like they are a gift from God for which they are. We hope that what we've shared with you today will be a
so much more we could say.
We've run out of time, but we're going to be happy to stick around for a while afterwards. If you've got some individual questions, we'd like to be able to address them, but we'll hand it back to Shabu, and thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thanks, guys. I think round of applause is good. If you know how to do that on an emoji on your Zoom, you can. Like Brett and Kate said, they're more than happy to stick around maybe for the next 15 minutes or so, because I'm also aware of their time. I don't want them to be out too late. So if you need to head off. If not, if you have a question or something that's really burning that you'd love to ask the next few minutes, please do so now. It'd be great.
And if there's if you want to send something, privately, you can send it to response@families.org.au, and we can answer any of those questions that you want to ask privately. But you can almost guarantee if you've got a question, somebody else is thinking it too. Parenting is the biggest privilege, but the toughest gig.